denied a bank loan.
Okay. All right. So here we are. We're live, and I'm going to try to click. We will be able to see the comments, but I haven't done this in several days. So I actually don't know how do I get over there to see them?
Right?
If we
I just
say
saw it
we're just
before.
flipping around a little bit.
Exit full screen. Exit full screen.
It won't be like that.
Oh, it won't.
No, there's something over here in the, oh, here we go, comments. Here we go. Okay. All right, guys. So welcome to my YouTube channel, JPES Talks. As some of you know, I'm Jessica, and I have my own it's pretty successful, right? I'd say, when you say, Nancy, my own successful English language arts tutoring business, and I also help with a couple other subject areas depending, but my primary focus is middle through high school students. So of course I left the classroom to get to start my own tutoring business, which I'm pretty excited about. So there are some things that I notice as a small business owner, and my friend Nancy has noticed too. So we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about the fact that there is an issue going around with negativity. I think it always exists, and it bothers us. And I feel like as educators, we know how to deal with a lot of it, but sometimes we ourselves are affected, as well as the parents of our students. We want to know how to deal with it, how to get rid of a negative mindset, because if you have a negative mindset, that's going to impede your learning. So without further ado, I want to introduce my friend Nancy. Nancy, I want you to tell everybody what you do, who you teach, and why you're doing this.
Yeah, I'm Nancy Van Lagerberg. I started Certified Educator Services 3.5 years ago as a private tutoring company. I was tutoring local children, and I was approached by a parent to teach one of their kids who live in Colorado. Remote was about 2 years ago, and I said sure. So I started teaching online. And then I was going to open up a learning studio, a learning center, and that didn't happen because of the pandemic. So I took my whole entire business model and turned it to be tutoring online. So I'm an online reading tutor, but I focus mostly like on the elementary subjects, so math and reading. And I also teach homeschool kids. So I teach homeschool. So I have clients who actually have me as their homeschool teacher.
I'm really glad actually that you weren't able to open up a physical place, because now you've opened up all these new opportunities online, haven't you?
It's been a real amazing journey. It's not been negative at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, negative, I see it every day. I see a lot of teachers struggling, classroom teachers. And I want to just tell them, like, there is an answer. There is something that you can do to, if you really think you need to leave that environment, which I'm biased because, that's something that I've gotten to do. But it was extremely difficult. It's hard. So I want to talk about this word. I guess that's really a phrase, though, that the issue with self-sabotage. And before, I guess the English teacher part of me wants to say, let's define the word first. So sabotage is deliberately destroying, damaging, or obstructing, especially from a military or political standpoint. So it's very dramatic. If we are sabotaging ourselves, and not just ourselves, but if we allow the people around us to talk down on themselves, it rubs off on us. I know that being a student in school, I would hear people saying negative things about the school or about the class or about the teacher, and it would bother me a little bit. And then if I'm in a bad frame of mind, I start believing it.
Yes.
I've just recently, I had a new student who she seemed like a great kid. And then as we're going through the writing process, she's making some mistakes and I'm pointing things out. In a helpful way, but she's still like, oh, sorry, I'm just stupid, or I can't do it, I'm just stupid. And then I thought, in the past, I think just as a more inexperienced teacher, I would have just written that off as like, oh, it's just something kids say. Like, they don't really mean that. But actually, I thought, no, hold up. Let's stop and talk about this. Why are you saying that about yourself? Because then they're like, oh, well, I think they believe it. So the I'm stupid, I just don't get it, I'm not one of the kids who get it, I feel like now that hurts my heart. So if you've been hearing that type of talk from, and I know you have a son as well, if you hear your son say those things or his peers say those things or your own students, how do you handle that type of self-sabotage?
Yeah, that kind of self-sabotage, tutors on the other side of the screen see quite a lot of it. We hear it through words like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Um, as an experienced tutor, and I do hear that a lot. As soon as I hear that, I say, "You don't have to say that with me. You don't have to be sorry about making any sort of mistakes. This is
Mhm.
where we're going to learn." And so, right from that very point, like that's kind of where it takes like the skills of really like the experience of being able to work with kids online, like to be able to take that right away and be like, no, that we're going to push that negativity out. And I know like it can be difficult for students just to push it out. However, if they know that you, the tutor on the other side, is not going to accept that, they don't have to be that way. And that kind of puts them more at ease so that they know like, oh yeah, I don't have to say I'm sorry every time or, oh, I'm stupid because you got me. You understand me.
As a student, I always thought that if you make a mistake, if you make a fool of yourself in front of people, it was just straight up embarrassing. And at that age, everybody is outwardly judgmental. It does feel embarrassing, but I think we need to be telling our children, our students, that it's okay to make a mistake as long as you're learning from it. I think we're expecting too much perfection, and that that causes people to go nuts. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm thankful I didn't have to worry about some of the things that students worry about today. I think we take some of it for granted, but we still hear about it. We're not deaf to it. So I think trying to figure out a way to show them that little failures along the way are ways that we can learn. I mean, I can think of so many times I have failed and I hated every second of it, but it actually benefited me later in the long run.
It
And
does.
I sometimes it's hard to talk to students about it because I want to be able to relate to them with my real life stories without them saying, "Oh, this is just an adult telling me all this stuff that I'm not really ready to hear." So, how would you recommend talking to teenagers about the idea or the action of failure, and how there's a type of failure where you quit,
Yeah.
and then there's the type where you say, "This was terrible, but I'm willing to learn from it." What would you tell, especially teens?
Yeah, that is a mindset of teens, and you can't just tell them, "Well, get out of it. Just stop thinking that way," because it really isn't, immediate for them. But when it comes to, trying to get them to get out of that mindset,
I know, right? There's so many different ways we can talk about it.
the
But
one thing I do say to them, and especially just if a student is receptive, right? If a student is receptive to learning and to change, not to change, but to grow from their mistakes, then you can kind of read them, and then you can be like, all right, this is what I love to say. When you're a baby, did you run outside and start to play on the slides and play on the monkey bars and stuff like that? No, you had to walk. I'm sorry, you had to crawl before you were able to even walk.
Mhm.
And how many times did you fall down? You don't remember because you can't remember that, right? I'm talking to a kid. And so they like start to realize, oh yeah. For an example, one of my students who I see every day, who I've been with for 3 years, so I've really seen him grow. So we really have a real history. And I took him from being a non-reader to a reader, and he
Mm.
frustrated. And I would say to him, "Were you a runner before you could walk? Did you walk before you crawled? And it took you months to learn how to walk, and months to learn how to walk, like years, like a year. Like it took you a long time, right? And these are something that you just want to do. So the brain is a muscle, just like anything else in your body when you want to train it. And to train your brain is going to take a lot of falling down, just like baby, and using what you have around you to crawl yourself back up again before you can run. So that's the analogy I like to give the kids, because then they kind of put it in perspective. Wow, it did take me years to learn how to walk. And how long did it take you to learn how to talk?
They won't remember. They're just like, "Oh, I wasn't afraid back then." Your kid falls down, they get back up, no problem. And now they're like, "Oh, all eyes are on me." Well, not really, not all of the time.
Hmm. Yep. So back to that, you're in a process, and it is a process,
Yeah.
and it takes
So
time.
it's one of the things that both of us have been working on is reading. And I know that especially you with some of the younger students, having some of those reading skills, that's a huge amount of emotion that comes with that. I think a lot of parents get worried if their kid is not reading like that, and immediately they're wanting to compare their own child to the kid down the street, or, their sister's kid and they're thinking, why isn't so-and-so, why aren't they reading enough? They're not picking it up fast enough, therefore they're going to fall behind. There's a lot of fear of falling behind. And really that's where we as tutors come into play. And we're like, oh, hey, don't worry. We've got you. We'll give them that extra learning time. But some kids are afraid to read on their own because especially by the time I get them in secondary school, they're like, they think they don't like reading because they were introduced to quite outdated, dry, boring text, and they think they hate it. And I'm like, listen, there's so much out there, especially now. I mean, you can read on the screen for free. You know how many books are free online? You don't have to pay a thing. There's fun stuff. I've got a student now who writes fan fiction. I mean, you can think whatever you want about fan fiction, but that's still reading for fun, which is so important. So with that said, do you think that reading, is it an active or a passive activity?
I know like when students are just beginning to read and learn how to read, it's a very active skill. Everything's active and everything. I kind of compare it to when you have a glitter jar and you shake it up. And so you have all these little skills that have to get put into reading, and it takes a long brain to bring them all together. And so you got to remember the kids go from reading aloud to reading silently. And then I don't know about you, but I noticed in the schools, like we never even taught those silent reading skills. So like you go from like actively reading, yes, I can hear you. Yes, you have to think about decoding and phonics and sentence structure as you're reading all these pieces. And then that all works. But then when it comes to story structure and understanding the craft, right? So once we go from reading aloud to reading silently and really studying the craft of it, I don't think students get enough opportunity just to get stuck into something. I think it's always just go, go, go when you really have to sit with something and you have to think. And then the only way to really show your learning is to write. So a lot of times kids don't have the ability to write about it.
So you think at first it is active because they're learning to sound out the word. It's fun for them. They're young and energetic. And then when they're older and they're told to read silently, there's a lot of staring at the words, recognizing the words, and just not really absorbing what's happening.
Yeah, they're not absorbing the story. It's more, I'm still just trying to get the words right. I'm still reading to survive. I'm reading the words. So a lot of times I have beautiful readers, but they're not stopping. They need new skills, like this, the self-monitoring skills of understanding the development of the story, understanding the whole content of the nonfiction text.
When I'm reading with students out loud, I try to pause and talk about it a little bit. I try to model what my brain is already doing. So let's say we're reading a paragraph, and even though I don't actually like to interrupt myself either, when I'm reading alone, I want to keep going. But I'm telling myself, no, the student needs to hear this. So I'll pause and say, I wonder what that word is. I think it means this. Maybe we should look it up. Oh, okay, here's what it is. And then I'll talk about, like, I wonder, why it's funny that they're talking like that. That reminds me of something my mom would say. Or, oh, I'll do that. And then I'll hear other students doing it too. They'll make a comment. I'm like, oh, good. They're making that connection.
Explicit modeling.
Yeah. And I feel like, ooh, I need to be doing that more because especially there are some kids that they have a book that we're just trying to get through it. We're just, they have to read it. They have to write a paper. The people who love to read versus the ones who probably don't. But that's like a forever goal for me. It's just getting students to enjoy what they're reading, because for me, reading is going to take out the entire negative feeling. You have to be able to read in pretty much every academic level. You're going to have a boost if you can. I mean, even when it comes to reading math problems, that's its own trick in and of itself. So that's something that, I was scared to death of word problems as a kid. And now I'm like, why was I worried? I cannot, well, at the elementary level, I could actually do the math. And I'm thinking, oh, what was it that was holding me back as a third and fourth and fifth grader who hated math? And I feel that, well, I had this negative feeling that I don't have anymore. Like, I believe in myself now. It only took, over 20 years to get there. But I want to get students to where I'm like, don't be like me. Don't take forever to build confidence. Don't do that. Oh, we have Kathy here. And
Hey, Kathy.
you can type, hi, Kathy. Kathy, since you just joined us, we're talking about how to really remove the negative mindset. Right now, we're talking about removing it around reading, because that's something that we both do as tutors. I have a funny comment here. I wasn't trying to get to this just yet, but do you remember what it was?
Which one?
Okay, so I was thinking about this when I was driving. I want a phrase that I want to tell kids. I want to say, well,
A
here's
leader a leader or a lurker?
yeah, you are either a leader or a lurker. Now, at first, nobody's a leader, unless they're the line leader. Okay, that's it. But at a certain point, I want to say, listen, this whole adopting those negative phrases, those they seem self-deprecating, but they're actually self-sabotaging. Telling yourself, "Oh, haha, I'm just stupid. I don't get it." You're convincing yourself. I mean, we've talked about this before. I believe that you're tricking the mind into thinking, well, you're not going to be like so and so over there. They're going to probably be valedictorian. You're just going to be an average person. What would you tell kids? What would you, kind of going back to that a little bit, what would you tell them if they're like, you can stand up for yourself and decide, I'm going to be a leader in my own academic performance, or I'm just going to sit around and not ask questions because I don't want to look stupid?
Yeah, that the best way that I work through those kind of issues with students is creating a possibility with them. So I literally get out the digital notebook and we say at the top, okay, what is the problem? What are we having trouble with? Oh, I hate math. But I know, but what do you hate about math? I hate having to understand the word problems. Okay, so we literally write out that. I hate having to write out the word problems. What does it look like for you when you hate the word problems? They say, well, my body goes like this. Right? Because they don't have to always say it, because kids are very sweet too. They don't always tell you that they hate this, right? Watch out behind you. I just had a light malfunction. Careful.
We'll work through it.
It's falling. So yeah, we work through a possibility, and so we say, like, what does it look like for you? What does this problem literally look like? Because obviously a lot of students are not aware that that is a problem that they can really even work out, right? So I say, what does it look like? It looks like this. How do you want to feel about this? And so they have to discover for themselves what their own possibility is, because if you don't let them connect with what they need to connect with, I'm just a facilitator. I only facilitate what they have to connect with, because it's their struggle. I can't, you know what I mean? I don't take on their struggle. I help them struggle out of it. Find a way. That's like the trick, not the trick, but that's the magic of tutors.
I want students to realize that if they don't like something because they're not good at it, they're going to have to spend more time with it. And I was, the biggest example of a rebel. I did not want to spend extra time with my math. I was like, no, I'd rather read. Well, I didn't have any issue reading at all. It was, can I get up early and go to my teacher who's giving free tutoring in the morning, get out there in the cold and being dropped off and going in. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do it, but you have to spend more time with it. And that is probably the hardest thing. But, that's that's why parents can hire us. That's why we're there to help, because I feel like we were probably decent students, but we weren't the best students. Like, did everything come easy for you in school?
It never did. I had to work my tail off, and I didn't work my tail off until 11th grade, when I finally came back from summertime and I was like, I want to be a teacher and I want to do good. And you have to give me 2 years of a language, and I have to take pre-algebra, because I literally was like a C student. And then I became really motivated. I don't know what it was within me. I had the desire to really go to school and learn, and something just snapped in my brain. And I had like really great mentors who were helping me along, like teacher mentors. And so that was super important for me to have. And I never felt like after that point, like when I started to prove to myself, I had to make it for myself. That's what I mean. Like, nobody could tell me that I had, like, it wasn't them, it's about, and I had to find my own way to struggle through the fire. So when students realize that there is a fire, and then we create that possibility of what would it feel like if there wasn't a fire anymore. And then, so my job is to help them get from where they're struggling over to where they want to be. So now they see, like, they have, oh, I can see, like, I can be getting better grades, right? But how am I going to get from here to there? So then we literally make a plan. I will do 10 minutes of reflex math a day. I will make sure I do a word problem with my sister. I will, make sure I have breakfast before I go to school, or, these just little things. And then we visit each other. We see each other again, and then we review the plan. Hey, I noticed you had breakfast. I noticed that you did 10 minutes of reflex math yesterday and that you're doing better on it today. And then that's where, see, they got to have a starting point, right? To see like how bad, because right now all they're thinking of is like, I'm in the muck. I'm never going to get out of it. I've never seen myself achieve above this point. But once they can see like, that's where I want to be, then they can start to reach for it. So you actually give them a goal to reach for, and then you can, as a tutor, you are the bringing that leader out because they're leading. You say, okay, what worked for you today? What didn't work? Were you feeling that? I saw it for like 2 seconds, and I saw like you relaxed. And that's the magic.
Do you think it's easier to get kids to relax and learn faster in the homeschool environment?
100%. There is no urgency. It's child-centric, so they're learning at their own pace. There's no tests and things to make sure that they pass or fail. It's let's take a look at where you are and let's see what we can build on. It's always a build up, and I know that in school it's all to study because we have to get the spelling test done. We have to get the comprehension test done. I have to get this assignment in by Thursday, and it's a lot of pressure to get stuff just complete. So we don't have a time to sit with the text.
Yeah.
We don't have time.
I felt guilty when we had to sort of rush through something. Or I remember having to read a book in the class. Everyone had, oh, by the way, not everyone had their own copy. They couldn't take the book with them. We had one class set. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. And so there were a couple of books we were not able to finish just because of our timeline. And the kids asked, they're like, oh, are we not going to finish that book? And I just felt awful. And I thought, this isn't what I want to do the rest of my life, rushing through this stuff that really is great. We want to sit and talk about it. And you've got quite a lot of students who want to learn. And then you have the ones who aren't quite there yet, kind of disrupting and keeping us from going further. So it was just with homeschool. I mean, I have to say, hey, if you don't understand something, you need to tell me, or usually I can tell because it's either one-on-one or me with the two brothers. But it's so funny how I'll actually look and see, oh, here's the mistake you're making. I notice it. And I had a huge discussion with one student the other day. I said, you don't understand how great it is that you get to work one-on-one with not only me, but also this other buddy of mine, the math teacher. Like I said, I would have loved this because, and I went through this whole dramatic spiel of what it's like to be in the classroom and have that nagging feeling like I really need to ask a question, but I'm not sure. I think someone else asked that question. I wasn't, completely listening. I spaced out, and now I'm too afraid to ask because if I ask, my friends are going to be on me about it. They'll make fun of me at lunch. I said, there's all these irritating things that while it is good to learn how to deal with things socially, that is removed so that they have a clearer learning process. And I told him that. I said, be so glad that you have this because we're just not interrupted. The worst they have to deal with is, oh, my brother was really annoying me when I was trying to do my math homework. Well, that's believable.
And it becomes a drive. Like it becomes like, okay, it's a conscious effort, right? And so what that looks like is sitting at the front of the class, right? And then maybe not talking to your friends during the class. And you have to make that conscious effort as a student. So if the student is ready to do that, those are little things that you can do, like physical things that a student can do straight away to get themselves in that positive mindset. Like I can literally just put myself somewhere else. Right. Yeah. And then if the kids are going to
move. Yeah. Go ahead. I always talk over people. It's like one of my skills. I just do that.
You're fine. But if they're going to be, making fun of the kid at lunch because they sat in the front. So that's a whole nother ball of wax, isn't it?
I just want parents to know that if they're thinking about doing something like homeschooling, that's something that there are people out there who can actually meet those needs like us. They don't have to feel that they, just because you're not a certified math or English teacher, there are people out there who are willing to teach. We can teach online. We can actually help your students, parents, if you're listening, because we love doing that kind of thing. We've experienced the classroom setting and homeschooling, and I think we know our preference. So I think there's a lot of parents I've seen in Facebook groups who are like, well, I'm thinking about homeschooling my kid, but they've got a lot of questions. And then some of them, they think, well, I'm removing him from the school system because there are bullies.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of things, there's a lot of stuff right there. It's a lot of emotion. You say, well, you do want to have that confidence in you to either avoid bullies or deal with them in the correct way. But yet, maybe it is good to remove them from an area like that, be in the homeschool system for a while, learn one-on-one or in small groups, and then later go back and deal with the masses later. I used to be against homeschool simply because I never did it. I wasn't a homeschooled kid, but I think I would have enjoyed it. What is something that you would tell parents who are considering either getting a tutor or getting a homeschooling teacher?
If you thought of it, you should totally reach out, because if you ever think, if it crosses your mind, it would not hurt just to reach out for a consultation to see what options are, because you don't know what you don't know. And especially homeschool parents just kind of getting into it, they're like, well, what are my options or what are my possibilities? And once they kind of see like the support and how fast that you can guide them through that process, it's money well spent. Believe me, it'll save you so much time and headache in the long run. It'll be really organized, and you will not have those projects sitting in your closet for a year to prove for the portfolio. We take care of all those things. So we help you with that too, like how to manage and how to organize. So I would just say, just do it.
Yeah.
Reach out.
So we do have a couple more points I wanted to make. Huge phrase. I love this because it's applying to us as professional, online, full-time tutors, also parents, also students. So listen to this. I love this. It says, am I willing to do what is required to get the result that I want? I'm going to repeat that because I like it so much. Okay. Am I willing to do what is required to get the result that I want? Okay, let's think of something. If you're pretty good at basketball and you realize the only way you're going to make that team is to practice a ridiculous amount of time, skip those video game sessions, skip it.
Larry Bird did it.
It's like, well, how badly do you really want something? Do you want to make the team? Okay, well, if you're okay, you're pretty good, guess what? You're going to have to elevate yourself and get better. Or do I want to pass this math class? Let's be realistic. I got to pass math. Maybe you're a terrible math student at first, and the one way to pass is to spend time coming to your teacher after school. Spend time talking to your mom like, hey, I think I do need a tutor. I'm willing to work with one for a few months to see if it'll improve my grade. It's got to take that. What do you think about that phrase? And while you talk, I'm going to actually put it up on the screen here.
Yeah. Am I willing to do what is required to get the result that I want? So it is that extra work. And I always tell my parents, like, the tutoring is going to really help your child, but you're going to definitely want to do X just to maximize the time of the tutoring time. But when it comes to doing what it takes to get what they want, again, it comes back to making that possibility. Do they know what they want? What are we wanting? Right? Is it that feeling of success? Of course, we want that feeling of success. But the student is going to say, I want to do better in math, right? I want to be a better reader, right? So that when they get more specific was, I want to do better in my math fluency. Well, now we really have something to work on and be able to show success. So I think one of the biggest points to make here, especially when it's doing what is required to get the result that I want, is make sure they've tasted success. So how, like, the student has to kind of want that. I know it's a lot easier to go, I'm going to go watch TV. It's a lot easier. And your mind gets really soft, and it's really easy to do that, right? So how can you get yourself required to get the result that you want? If you're going to want B's in math, you really do have to put in that time. And it has to be a buy-in on both sides, right? It can't just be the parents wanting it for the kid.
Yeah.
Right. So it has to be like a whole team effort. Everybody has to want it.
It's all about the path of least resistance. So if I'm trying to help, let's say I need to help my students because they're falling behind. Maybe sometimes I'd rather just watch Netflix. I need to catch up on some shows that keep.
I love to.
there's more shows out there, and oh geez, I really need to make some quizzes and some vocabulary worksheets for my students, or organize for my other student who actually comes to my house to work with me. I need to do that, but it's just easier to let me just spend some time to myself. And then whenever I neglect my own students or my own business, suddenly I'm like, oh, I can tell you try to do what was easier, and now you've suffered.
Exactly. Yes, you kind of pay the hard yards now to get the rewards later.
Yeah, so now you realize it. I mean, I think back to you. I know you said you've been a snowboarder, you've done yoga. I think kids need to be involved in some other activity that pushes them. Like for me, I remember running track, and middle school track was pretty easy, but when I entered high school, I was one of the slower hurdlers. I was a hurdler, but I realized, guess what? I ran a race and I didn't like being in the back. I'm like, this isn't gonna work. Hey, Robert.
Hey, Robert.
I don't like being in the back of this race, and so guess what I had to do? I had to go running on weekends with my parents at the local track, and it was all concrete, by the way.
What?
My coach let me borrow a couple hurdles because we had tons of these stored in the storage area, and they let me take them home over the summer so I could run and jump, run and jump. That's what I did. I got better, and I thought, it's kind of comfy to be inside, not doing anything, or I could just push myself a little bit. And guess what? I made it to state senior year in both my hurdle events because I just taken it a lot more seriously. And looking back, I think, man, if I had just done that from 8th grade on instead of middle, I waited a little bit. In 9th and 10th grade, I was a little more soft. And then later I pushed myself. So I thought, okay, that's one success. I like how that felt. So everyone has that bit of success, and I think you need to find how to make it happen again.
And you felt it because you had a different avenue. You had a different avenue of experiencing yourself. You had a physical way of your physical body doing something physical that you could see. We can't see our brains. The only way that we can prove that we are understanding things is through actually seeing it on paper, right? Seeing something as a growth. So that's so cool that you were able to experience that success because you had the different outlets. So I want to tell parents too, and really stress that it's definitely not all study and hard work either. I really want to stress too that you're right, having different outlets, different things to do that are structured, maybe martial arts, or maybe, I don't know, the running and the hurdling, and maybe your child likes to go sewing. People are picking up sewing again, right? So there's other things that actually can occupy and create deep successes that a child can connect to that are outside of education. So you're totally right.
I just think the more we talk to them about this, the better they're going to get it. Am I willing to do what is required? If you're not willing to do it, then you don't really want it that much. And so that's how you weed out the things you really want versus the things that are like, I'm not really quite there yet. So, Robert, and if Kathy's still here, you guys ask us some questions, make some comments here, because we're about to get to our last point. Because I know I said we try to do about 30 minutes. We're at 33 minutes. I know, right?
This is so much fun.
Recommendations. Let's talk about, since we have some tutors in here watching, let's talk about recommendations for other tutors. How do we keep ourselves positive? Because as soon as we get excited about something, somebody, maybe a client says, oh, we're not going to tutor anymore for now, or they disappear, or they complain about the cost, or just something, or like, shoot, I didn't make my financial goal like I wanted to this month. How do we combat that negativity? Because it can hit us hard.
Yeah, I always love to hear what everyone else does too. And I feel really honored to be here, Jessica. So thank you for having me. I didn't get a chance to say thank you. And also wait, what was the question again?
Oh, this happens every time. I do it too. So what are some recommendations? How would you recommend keeping a positive mindset when it comes to, first of all, our tutoring business?
That's why I said thank you. Gratitude. Every day it's super important for me to find something to be grateful for. And I know it sounds so cheesy. I know it's just woo stuff, Kathy.
Woo-woo.
But you got to believe in yourself. You can't see your brain. You can't see what you're doing, but you have to believe that you're doing a great job. There's be grateful that you have the computer to work on. A routine is super helpful for tutors as well. So, I mean, exercising. I practice yoga. Really helps to keeps my brain open to looking for more opportunities. So we're out of that negative mindset now. So you and I, Jessica, we've been working on positive mindsets, right? So we are coming now from abundance. It's not coming from grasping, which is called aparigraha in Sanskrit, which is for, to hold on to things. It's one of those virtues you really, it holds you back from being your best self, grasping onto what to be, how to be there. So keeping a good mindset, gratitude, exercise, just for the physical release of the craziness. That's my recommendation. Jazzercise.
Nice and I've done jazzercise together for anyone who's wondering, what are they talking about? Yeah, I noticed that every time I exercise, and usually I don't want to get started, every time I'm like, man, I feel a little bit better. Even if I'm tired, it's like good tired, like, I feel a little bit better than I did. Oh, like it was worth it. Mm-hmm. Catherine says talking to other tutor friends. That's one of the huge things. I know we need to move on and talk about students and parents, then we'll be done today. But reaching out to one another and saying, hey, I know you have your own tutoring business. How's yours going? We're talking shop, because it's not like, when I had other teacher friends, classroom teachers, well, we could go on and on talking on about that world. And especially in my family, because so many people in my family are teachers, we talk shop and we say, oh, I'm frustrated with this. I think something maybe we need to remind each other is if someone's going down the rabbit trail of complaining, like, oh, these people on Facebook have bad grammar. Oh, I can't believe my student canceled again. We need to step in and stop one another and say, hey, stop the self-sabotaging.
Yes.
So stop me. Because I
will.
It can happen. Even me. I try not to do it.
Me too. Kathy reaches out to me and helps me out. She says to me, where have you been? Do you fall off the face of the earth? No, but I thank you, because it means so much that someone is actually thinking about me out there. My tutor friends, right? Because we are alone. We are by ourselves pretty much. We have the device here, just like as if you want your children to have real people, we all have to reach out. It's really important.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to leave Kathy's comment up here, and I like it. Appreciating that you then have time to do more marketing to get your name out there. We have time. I always feel that, well, if I devote all my time to helping my students, then I forget that I'm so busy helping them that I forget to say, hey, don't forget, spread the word. I'm here to help. Sometimes we don't want to really talk about ourselves too much, because it's like, I don't want to sound like a dumb business person, but you kind of want to continue growing.
Yeah. Unabashedly.
Yes. Students need to hear what are positive ways to like quick things, because when we have students for a long period of time, we can really work on them changing their mindset. What is something that could be like a quick way, like right then in the middle of class, suddenly they shut down? How do we fix that?
Take a breath. What I just did.
Just like that.
Yeah. And I just stop for a second and I say, how you doing?
I try to do some fun things where I try to break it up. There's a lot of stuff is for free, like doing Wheel of Names, or we'll try to play a little game, or I really try to incorporate things that they like. Like I have a student who likes BTS. I try to have her write about BTS, talk about it. So Kathy's getting her hair done. I want to let them know that, okay, I know that reading this other stuff, that can be a little dry. Let's talk about what you like. Let's write about it. Let's talk about it. Helps a little bit to get them off their whole, oh, I don't get it. Oh, I feel bad. I'm like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
And then let's do one more thing. What is something a parent has told you, something a bit negative? It could be anything. And you've wanted to help them change that mindset, whether it's helping in like tough love kind of way, or it's like a, hey, don't worry kind of way.
As tutors, we have to keep it professional and stay focused. So if a parent wants us to help them with that kind of social, emotional parent pep talk, which is really a big part of our online homeschool tutoring facet, isn't it? Like we're working with parents, we're helping them kind of get out of like what they can't see, because they have a hard time because they're in the muck with their kids, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean that with all love. It's a hard road, especially when you have teenagers. I've seen it firsthand. So parents either I'm either going to stay totally focused on what I'm teaching. And if they do want some help, then I just do the same thing with them. We create a possibility for them. And they create a possibility how they can map it out. And then I back them up with, like, I report to them. I say, oh, Ava's been working on her lessons every day this week. She can have her free time this weekend, right? So like we kind of put like those supports in place to make sure the teenagers are getting their work done. So that's like accountability.
Yeah, they like that. Parents want to see really like a organization and schedule. Parents kind of teach you sometimes. You're like, oh, they just asked a question. I don't have that in place yet for my business. I better go create that. So I want to go and create it. Like, oh, why don't I have an online calendar? That's ridiculous. I need to create one. Or I need an easier way for them to pay me instead of going through the rigmarole. Like different ways to say what we want to do is cut down on the parent stress so that the kid is not stressed.
Right.
You know, we don't want the parents to say, oh, no, I forgot. We have a disappointment. Oh, no, I don't want to do. I love when I can say, oh, that's no problem. I actually do have room in my schedule for the following day at the same time. Or, hey, I have a policy. Oh, I'm so sorry. You got to cancel within 24 hours. But don't worry. We'll work really hard on our next lesson. Like telling them that we're not just here to give their kid busy work. We're here to support their child and therefore the parent too.
Exactly. And making it easier for them would also look like, here's my schedule. So I know you couldn't make it to it. So as a courtesy, like your online schedule makes it so they can just, now the power is back in their hands. And that's really what we want to do. We want to empower the parents, empower the students.
Yeah. I love that we've kind of spent more time thinking about the parent because, sometimes the parent has no idea. They don't know what to do. And I don't miss that about the classroom when the parent was just like at a loss of what to do. And I'm like, well, the trick is they probably need more one-on-one, but with tutoring, they can get it. The classroom, they only get so much, if maybe possibly not at all. Mm-hmm. So, Kathy, so funny. Sparkles help everything. Surrounding yourself with the stuff you like. That's why I'm working so hard on this office area because it's not just an office. It is an online classroom. It's also a physical classroom. So I try to keep stuff organized so that I'm ready. I'm like, oh, here, let me explain to you. Here's Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. You know how many times I have to give a history lesson because now I feel old compared to these kids, and I'm not even that old. Like, guys, let's talk about it. So today I also talked about Native Americans and how the Indian reservations. I'm like, I'm not really equipped to talk about this, but I guess I know because it comes up in the stories, and when they don't know, you're like, okay, we have to stop and talk about this so that you understand this cloud around that topic, why it exists, and why are we reading this poem from a Native American woman? They don't know. Like, they see the word redskins in Peter Pan, and they're like, they don't realize how much is attached to that. I'm like, oh, you see.
Yeah, very culturally adaptive, moving through cultures. I mean, you're much younger than me too. At least, I'm old, so I can just live in it. I believe them, like when they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. I know. You don't know what a plug-in phone is either.
No, I had a co-teacher who, she was quite a bit older than me, and she would say, oh, I prefer shopping on my phone. I just like buying stuff off my phone. I was like, dude, even I need my laptop for that. Like, I can't. I'm like, Okay, so guys, we better close it down. Dinner's being cooked in the next room. I better get out of here, and we've got some stuff. But Nancy, when in this, we'll actually be able to say goodbye one more time. We'll be in, almost said Snapchat, StreamYard. So, like I said, I love doing these. I think it makes us a little more, I don't know, I guess it makes us better at talking about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And these types of videos can be shared with parents. You can send the links in the email and say, hey, here's something, if you want to know more about my life philosophy, because there are some parents who want to see everything that you do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So guys, thanks so much for listening, especially if you listen later after the recording. I know a ton of you are teaching right now, so you can't come in, but watch again and comment. I need those sweet, sweet views for my YouTube channel. And also, I just want to especially thank Nancy for coming and being brave.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to end this because I'm not good at goodbyes. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.